Chapter 6, Lesson 4. Please turn with me to page 461. We are talking about algebra and writing expressions. So, algebra. Algebra is the mathematics involving letters, symbols, numbers, and operators. When I say operators, I mean add, subtract, multiply, and divide symbols. Alright, so let's look at our first example. Alright, in the real world link, we're talking about airports. Missouri has 8 major commercial airports. California has 24 major commercial airports. Alabama has 4 fewer airports than Missouri. So underline the key word, fewer. And that would involve subtraction. Now, we know that Alabama, we'll use an A, has, the word has means equal. So Alabama has 4 fewer than Missouri. So Missouri minus 4. California has 3 times as many airports as Georgia. So again, circle the key math word, that would be multiplication. California has 3 times the number of airports of Georgia. Alright, so again, I take the words and I put them into an expression, but in this case equations, because I have the word has, which means I can make an equal sign. Alright, let's keep going. Okay, so we've turned the page. When we write phrases as algebraic expressions, the first thing that we have to do is take the words and figure out what the variable is. What are we trying to solve for? So we need to read it, choose a variable, and then translate that into an expression. Alright, so let's keep working. Writing each phrase as an algebraic expression. $8 more than Ryan earned. So, we're talking about money, and it says more than. I want to talk about the word than. Anytime you see the word then, we're going to throw the number to the back. This becomes very important with subtraction. Addition, not so much, but in the case of subtraction, it must be thrown to the back. And there's logic behind this. So let's first write this. Now, dollar, we're going to use the D for dollar. So D, and then $8 more than. So D plus 8. And the commutative property of addition says I can write this 8 plus D and still get the same answer. So for addition and multiplication, I can reverse the order and it's okay. But that's not the same thing when we talk about subtraction. So let's look at this. $10 less than the original price. So here we have a price, and it's $10 less than that price. So let's just say, for instance, that the price was $20. If I say 20 minus 10, I get $10, which makes logical sense. But if I inadvertently write it 10 minus P, I would get negative $10, which makes no sense. So again, wording is very important. When you see the words less than, you have to throw the number behind the variable. You have to take that number and throw it behind. And it's not the word less, it's the word then. So when you see the word then, you have to throw it to the back. Let's keep going. So now we have 4 times the number of gallons. 4 times the number of gallons. So we're going to let G represent our word gallons. And we're talking about number of gallons. In this case, we have 4 times. So we know we're talking about multiplying. So 4 times the number of gallons. Now, I can write it with the dot for times, or I can write it just for G. In algebraic equations and expressions, we would leave the dot out. We cannot use an x, because if I write 4xg, then x is also a variable, as would g, and so I cannot use an x anymore. I cannot use an x anymore. Sorry, 4. Let me put the 4 back in front of this. I cannot use an x anymore because at this point it represents a variable. So we would write that 4.g or 4g. All right, it's your turn. You gotta go. Pause the video. Did you get what I got? I got b minus 4 because I used bulls instead of scored. So bulls minus 4, 12 times the number of feet, 12f. Now notice I didn't put ft because then t would be a variable also. So just 12f. And then the total cost of the shirt plus 8, so s plus 8. Now because I have shirt and socks starting with the same letter, I decided to put a little h subscript, so I define that as my shirts. I can't put an s and a big H, but I can put a subscript of H. Let's keep going. Now we're going to write two-step equations. So let's read the example, write the phrase 5 less than. Ooh, I'm going to already go ahead and put that like that so I know it goes behind. 3 times the number of points as an algebraic expression. So points, I have points. That's going to be my variable. I have 3 times, that's a multiplier, and then 5 less than. So again, remember 5 less than, I have to throw that to the back. Okay, so that's what they got. Now it's your turn. These are not that hard if you think about the phrases. See you soon. Pause the video. Did you get what I got? I got 4p plus 3. And notice I can rewrite that as 3 plus 4p using the commutative property, and I'll still have the same example. I can do that with addition, but never, never, never with subtraction. Turn the page. All right, now we have our last example. Terry bought a magazine for $5 and 2 bottles of nail polish. Write an expression to represent the total amount she spent. All right, so we have to do that before we figure out anything. In this case, we know she bought a magazine. I keep picking up the blue, which we know you can't write with. Let's just come over here. There we go. All right, so she bought a magazine, plus she bought 2 nail polishes. Now, they told me the price of the magazine, which was $5. So I'm going to go ahead and put 5 plus 2n. And notice I can only pick one letter for nail polish. I can't put an L and a P because then that's 2 variables. Okay, so now I have my expression. I have 5 plus 2n. Now, I need to solve for it using $3 for the cost of 1 bottle of nail polish. So I have 5 plus 2 times 3. Order of operation says I have to do multiplication first. So I have 6, and now I have to add my 5 to it. So I have $11. So the amount she spent was $11. And notice, again, I could write that 2n plus 5 or 5 plus 2n. And they used a D for dollars. I prefer to use a letter that's more descriptive of my variable. In this case, my variable is talking about nail polish, not the magazine. They both cost money, so I like to use the N instead of the D. Okay, it's time for you to do it. Pause the video. Did you get what I got? I got 4e. Notice I use a lowercase e. Variables, we use lowercase letters for the most part. 1/2 g. The width is, so I decided to make an algebraic equation. W equals L minus 4. Remember, less than, throw it to the back. 5c for CDs plus 12. And then we have the popcorn one, so I said P plus 3D, and then they defined that popcorn is $3.50. I don't need the 0, so 3.5 plus 3D. And I substituted in the 1.5 for $1.50, and I ended up with $8. So, How can writing phrases as algebraic expressions help you solve problems? Because words into numbers and variables is easier to do than just words. Thank you for listening.